Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, mothers, fathers, daughters, sons, brothers, and sisters. Welcome back to the AFVRC, the Armed Forces Virtual Racing Challenge 2025. We head to the east. It is the wonderful track of Snetterton in Norfolk for round number 4 of what's shaping up to be an absolutely superb season. I can't wait. I absolutely love this track. I make no secret of it. I pretty much mention it every single time I get the chance of it, and I make no apology for it in the slightest. My name is Chris Buxton. I'll be one of your commentators throughout tonight's festivities, and I am very happy to welcome back to my side the Scottish wonder himself. It is Mr. John Monroe.
How are we doing tonight, Chris? I know you're a big fan of Snetterton.
I love it, and those starch flags are fantastic.
Yeah, there's not enough wind though. That's not really realistic, is it, for Norfolk? It seems
Not
a little
enough
bit
rain
calm,
either.
but I think the calmness will soon dissipate as we enter tonight's action. We obviously had an incredible battle throughout both races last time at Oulton Park. Race 1 was just phenomenal close racing. Race 2 was carnage. Let's just say that. The attrition rate was probably higher than we've ever experienced before in this series. But I think Snetterton 400 layer, or 300 layer, I should say, is going to bring up a whole new set of challenges.
Very much so, but I've got to say though, following last week at Oulton Park, it's really challenging my love of what is my favourite track now, because I've always said it is Snetterton. Tell you what, that Oulton Park really did it for me last week. That was so good. So then, there is an overview of the track. Our broadcast director, the man in charge of the cameras, is Tom Bryant. Glad to have you back with us, Tom. It is a 2-race setup for tonight, so 2 sprint races as we had before, with the reverse grid element. For those unfamiliar with that particular setup, anywhere a random number is chosen between 6 and 12, and depending on the number that is chosen, it is that many grid positions from the race result of race number 1 that are reversed for race number 2. And at the end of the second race, so before we get our chance to speak to our drivers, we will be rolling the randomizer to pick the venue for round number 5. So that I am really curious at. Now, I had a bit of a sneak peek at the randomizer options, and we have got some absolute, well, they're all actually pretty good. There's a couple I'm really favoring. I really hope we get there. So that is how the calendar shapes up. We started off in a very soggy Thruxton. We had a wonderful effort in Silverstone GP, but I tell you what, John, Oulton Park last week, that's going to take some beating. It was absolutely phenomenal.
You know what? We always think that. I always think the previous round is going to take some beating, and then the series just never fails to deliver. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw more of it this time around. I think there's some really interesting stories at the top of the championship as well. Obviously, you had Ryan Martin probably setting the pace so far this season. In fact, there are your championship standings. But as you can see, not topping the table, because Chris Pawley, Mr. Consistency so far, plenty of podiums, a couple of race wins splattered in there as well. Chris Pawley on 534 points. I don't think he's got the outright pace that Ryan Martin has at the top, but Ryan's had a couple of issues. He made a mistake in the second race at Oulton, ended up retiring from that race. And he also had his issues earlier in the season with a spin at Thruxton, for example. So it's not been plain sailing for the fast Scotsman. And it means that Chris Pawley leads the standings as we go, with Pete Plasto third on 488 points. And Adam Barron keeping up there in the mix as well. So it looks like we've got a slight breakaway at the top with 4 drivers. But of course, Chris, there are still drop scores to be taken into account. We've still got our reigning champion, for example, Chris Boland, in the mix as well, having for him missing the double header at Silverstone. So there's plenty of drivers who are still in the mix, but we are beginning to see our contenders emerge.
That is very true. And again, new names that are making the establishment work for it. Here is our team's championship. Now, the Royal Air Force, again, purely out of numbers, over half the grid are representing our Royal Air Force contingent, are running away with it. But the British Army, our veterans, and our Royal Navy all represented. We thank each and every driver for their service, either past or present, in our armed forces. We are ever thankful for that. Qualifying has just got underway, so it's a 20-minute qualifying session that will dictate the grid for race number 1 of the evening. And then, as mentioned earlier, with the reverse grid element, that will shuffle up the up to 12 positions of the grid for race number 2, and from 13th downwards will be wherever they finish. I think there were 16 cars at the end of practice. Again, it is Ryan Martin that tops the practice session, as he pretty much has done every week. He's been with us, but not by much. It will say it was about 0.4 of a second. Bearing in mind, this is nearly a 2-minute lap. Again, it's a long circuit here in Snetterton, a bit like Silverstone in that respect, not quite as long. So 0.4 of a second over a nearly 2-minute lap. That's one mistake. That's one miss. That's one locked up braking zone. One slightly wide. The thing with Snetterton, though, is it is a little bit more forgiving in certain areas, certainly more so than Alton Park. I mean, you make a mistake at Alton Park, and that's pretty much the end of your day, not just the end of the lap. You have got run-off areas, but depending on where you make your mistake, you could lose a lot of time. You make a mistake, you run a bit too wide in Coram, for instance, the penultimate turn, you're losing an absolute bucket load of time.
I think you've hit the nail on the head, really. It's not as deadly or scary as Alton. You know, when you get it wrong, you're not as likely to have a crash, but you are just as likely to lose a lot of lap time. And I think that's the thing around here. The flow is really important. There are so many different ways that you can gain and lose lap time around Snetterton. And sometimes you don't even know it yourself. You could be doing one lap and then the next lap suddenly feels similar, but you're at 7/10 quicker. And it's just those subtle little differences as we now jump on board with Ryan Martin for what's probably going to be his first flying lap in this qualifying session. But many technical corners here. It's a very flat circuit as well, so a great view for the virtual spectators that have turned up here at Snetterton to watch this race. But hopefully, I mean, you guys don't need that because you've got a great view from on board of Ryan Martin's Mercedes as we speak.
So now I've worked, so I love this place. I've always said that for a number of reasons. From a sim racing perspective, I love the flow of it. You get into that rhythm and it's so rewarding. I love racing here. I've worked here a few times. Commentating at Snetterton is absolutely fantastic, except for the fact that in the main commentary position, which is on the start-finish line, there are two whacking great big trees right behind the commentary box, which does make commentating from there a little bit more interesting. You've raced here as well, John, and you were telling me what you last raced here, and I'm insanely jealous. Please do divulge.
Yeah, the last time I was racing at Snetterton, I was racing a Lotus Elise S2 with a bit of work done on the engine and some aero and everything. So it was kind of like a baby GT4 racer in many ways. So I kind of have a feeling of what some of these drivers are going through around here. The Lotus was maybe a little bit less forgiving than some of these cars that are being thrown over the curbs right now. I certainly wasn't using that much curb when I was last here. But it is an epic circuit once you get into the rhythm, really. And, you know, as I say, it could be literally one lap that you do that suddenly you hook everything up and you get all the corners right, you get the trail braking right, because that's a hugely important aspect of a good lap time here at Snetterton, and suddenly the lap times just tumble. So it's an awesome place to come, great place to race as well. Lots of cutbacks, we'll see lots of runs being made, but Ryan Martin, we're seeing him now starting a lap, so we'll try and follow him for an entire lap if he continues on. A 154.5 from Ryan, with Pete Plasto coming in second straight away. So there's the first double right-hander heading now towards the hairpin. That first two corners, Chris, are Rich's, or two apexes there are Rich's. It's properly committed, properly fast, and we do sometimes see some moves in there, but obviously it then opens you up to another move heading into that Montreal hairpin we just saw, and that's where we can definitely see some instance today.
Yeah, absolutely. So that is going to be a fairly common overtaking spot, along with here Agostini. If you get Palmer wrong, which is the left-hander that we've just gone through, that is going to compromise your run down to this particular left-hander. So now a short squirt up to Hamilton. Throw the car in, slight tap of the brakes to scrub off a little bit of speed. Now it's the right-hander of Oggies. I've seen quite a few cars go off into that particular spot. The track is wide enough to do side-by-sides, although these GT4s are fairly hefty, so you won't get too many side-by-sides going on. Through Williams and onto the Bentley Straight. So big slipstreaming opportunity here, and we come up to one corner complex I always struggle with in sim racing. It is Brundle, which is the left-hander, into Nelson. It is so easy to get that wrong, and the curb at Nelson will send you into the stratosphere. It is a horrendously sharp curb. Now into bomb hole, so the car dips down and then spits back out. Then it's a wonderful corner to get right. Feels like you're being sucked into the corner. And there is Coram, this long, seemingly never-ending right-hander. You're scrubbing off the speed. You're immediately into a braking zone for Murray's, this final left-hander, then onto the centre straight to complete the lap. Now, does Ryan Martin improve on his already pole sitting time of 154.521? Let's have a look. In the AMG Mercedes, did he improve? He did by about a quarter of a second. 154.246 or 245, the current Pole time, Pete Plasto also improved up to second, 155.145. Once again, it is Ryan Martin ruling the roost.
Talked about Brundle Nelson, and I spoke a lot last time at Oulton about how every corner feels somewhat unique around there. And I think Brundle Nelson's another one of those. It's a complex that you just don't see anywhere else in the world. Basically, Brundle is a left-hander that's a fast, commitment-based corner, but because Nelson comes immediately after it, Brundle is essentially just one of the most interesting braking zones in the country. There's no other way of putting it. It's just a 90-degree braking zone, really. And it's all about the balance of the car. Do you commit, quick into Brundle and really have to throw on the anchors before Nelson? Or do you scrub off a little bit of speed, give yourself a slightly safer run through Brundle, get the weight transfer right, and then nail your exit through Nelson? It totally depends on whether you're qualifying, whether you're racing. But it's another position, or another place in the track, I should say, where we're going to see incidents today. We're going to see moves. Maybe some of them will get pulled off, some of them won't. But do you go outside? Do you go inside? If you lock a wheel, you're going to cause mayhem. So it's a really, really technical, tricky part of the circuit. But it's one of the sections, I would say, that characterizes this place and gives it the personality that it has.
Quite agree, and the Coram leading into Murray's has very much the same feel, that very, very long right-hander, the 180-degree right-hander that then leads into the final turn as Darren Berris and the Aston Martin gets out of the way of our current pole sitter, Ryan Martin. Leading into Coram, as we're just coming into now, you run too wide here and it will take you a fortnight to get back onto track. You lose an insane amount of time on Coram, and then you've got to get the car settled very, very quickly to complete your braking for Murray's. It is a relatively slow left-hander to have to get right, having just done this seemingly never-ending long right-hander. It is very, very tricky, complex to get right. As Ryan Martin now to the 54 zeros, 154.034 on the board. Pete Plasto improves again, 155.001, as Adam Barron in the Porsche jumps up into second. The only other man to get into the 154s. 54.884 for him. Seeing some more improvements on the board. We do have more than 10 cars out there, but only 10 times on the board at the moment. Matty Chambers coming over the line. The very colourful Mercedes slots into 8th position with a 156.450. So still time out there to find, and still half the qualifying session with Wood to find it. The tail getting a bit uncomfortable there, coming out of Ritchie's. And the king of the McLarens was the BMW champion, you could say. King of the Beamers last time around. James King for the Royal Air Force in a very, very distinctive livery. Coming over the line now. Where does James King slot in? See, that is 8th with a 155.968. So even though, like I said before, it's nearly a 2-minute lap, the times are very, very close. Barely 2/10 separating a number of different cars.
If we just, eliminate Ryan Martin for a second, we'll just cover that top half of the screen. If you go from Barron down, you've got 54.8, 55.0, 55.1, 55.2, 55.4. So it's the usual, super competitive. The same familiar names we're seeing up towards the top of the leaderboard. David Wrench doing a great job now in P4. He's looking for another strong event after a couple of bad luck incidents, you would say, at Silverstone and Oulton Park. So it's good to see him back towards the sharp end. We're on board now with Sean Watson in the 89 Aston Martin, who tackles those opening 2 corners. He's a little bit off the back at the moment of his rival Steve Wardle in the McLaren, so he'll be looking to find a little bit here. Sean been around for the full season so far and looks to be enjoying himself, as Pete Plasto jumps now up to second on a 54.750. So closing that gap down to Ryan Martin a little bit, but Martin still has a comfortable hefty lead. It's also hefty lead, I should say. It's also sporting a new livery this week, Ryan Martin. I think there's a few drivers actually with new paint schemes, and they're looking very, very good in my opinion. I
thought Ryan Martin had changed his shirt. It does look rather fetching there. Tom Stevens jumps up in the Porsche into 4th position with a 55.098. Dan Cross in his Mercedes up into 6th with a 55.1. Very nicely done, and that is Sean Watson demonstrating exactly what I'm talking about. One mistake so easy to do. You can argue that any circuit, a mistake is easy to do. Very true. Now, there is slightly more forgiving it. If you make a mistake at Oggies, it's a fairly slow right-hander as it is, and because it's a fairly slow corner, you're not flying off the road. Although if you do fly heavily off the road, a wall meets you, this dividing wall between Oggies and then the straight that goes between Wilson and Palmer. So, oops, and there is a very, very... I have been many a virtual lap doing exactly that, going too hot into Nelson. you can't get the car slowed down enough, or the car gets very unsettled, you then have to turn left into a right-hander, which spits you off into the grass. That is that lap done. Switch back to the freshly repainted Ryan Martin car, rather than the person, I should say. His previous lap to this, he did 154.034. His lap before that, his lap after that was a 154.038. 4,000 difference. Wow. So consistency yet again being the main ally of Ryan Martin. Well, consistency in his lap times. He did a 57 on that occasion, so probably getting out of the way of traffic. But he can do it. He can get those consistent, blistering lap times in there. But it's been a bit unlucky in the reverse grid races so far this season.
Yeah, absolutely. And to be fair, some of that has been his own making as well. Like the mistake we saw obviously at Alton Park, but Silverstone in the endurance race there, that wasn't his fault, but he came back to win anyway, so it didn't really matter. So yeah, Ryan will just be looking for a cleaner race out in front. Obviously it's going to be the reverse grid where he really has to, make hay and get through the pack, assuming he does, hold on to this pole position, and then I'm sure he'll be wanting to run away at the front here in race one. We're obviously missing Chris Pauley tonight by the looks of it, and Chris Boland, so a couple of names that we'd normally see right at the top aren't there. And I'm actually, no, Pauley is here. He's just in the pits at the moment, I'm hearing. Oh yeah, of course, he is in the server. I can see him there. So no lap time yet from Pauley, which is a bit concerning. He's only got about 7 minutes left to set a lap time, does our championship leader. But I think Martin's got such an advantage. And as you were saying, Chris, only 4 thousandths of a second between his fastest 2 laps. So it's not just that he's got pace, he's got consistency and pace as well. So he can set 2 lap times that are both nearly a second quicker than the rest of the field. That is ominous for the rest of the field.
There's always one, isn't there? You're driving your heart out. You do the lap of your life. You think, yes, that's got to be towards the front, and someone still has 7:10. There is always one, isn't there? But not taking it away from Ryan Martin. It's a stunning performance yet again. As we see Adam Barron doing a bit of lawn mowing in the Porsche. Interesting to see the Porsches a little bit stronger this week than I was kind of expecting them to be. I thought the Porsches may struggle a little bit against the mighty Mercs and the big Astons. But, I mean, Adam Barron, he's always towards the front. He's certainly well within the top 5 on a regular basis. Currently sits in 4th in the championship. Tom Stevens is right behind him as well on the board. Currently sits in 7th in the championship, up 1 from the week before. Was that Mr. Plasto over the line? It was, just starting a new lap for him in the British Racing Green-ish Aston. That's been Tom Stevens. I think that's a new livery. I'm not entirely sure we've seen that one before. He's just coming through Murray's. Oh, nearly flirting with the grass. Again, using every single pixel available of the matting runoff area. Matt Chambers gets up into 8th position with the 55.3, a 55.1 for Tom Stevens. Even then, he's only a few hundredths off his best of a 55.098. So there's still time out there to find for some people, but you can see people are really, really pushing hard.
By the way, our race winners last time out, or last season at Snetterton, were Adam Barron and Pete Plasto, who are currently 2nd and 3rd on the grid. So that they are our latest 2 winners around this circuit in this particular series. We also saw James King on the podium last season, but he's currently down in 10th, so he'll be hoping to pick up a few positions before the end of this session. But it's that gaggle of cars in front, isn't it? It's the Chambers, Forrest, Cross, Wrench, Stevens. They're all so closely matched. That's definitely going to be an area to look out for in this race. Meanwhile, Steve Wardle, we look at now in the blue McLaren down in 12th place. He's 4.4 off of pole position, and honestly, around this long Snetterton 300 circuit, it's very, very easy to find yourself 4 seconds away from the pace when the pace is being set by someone like Ryan Martin. But Wardle's looking solid on this lap, using all the curb on the exit, which is good to see as we now head down towards the hairpin. So this is Agostini. Let's see what Wardle can do on the exit here. Again, nice line on the way in, not quite using all of the road on the way out, and those are the kind of things that will cost you that little bit of time. But Steve obviously will be hoping to improve here and get a little bit closer to Ben West now in front, but it's a bit wide through Hamilton. It's a tricky corner as well there, Chris. If you turn in too early, very, very easy to clobber that tyre barrier on the inside. So it's a bit of a commitment guessing game, and you hope you get as close to that barrier as possible without actually hitting it.
Improvement in time, but not position for Pete Plasto, so he's eroding the gap between himself and the ever-dominant Ryan Martin. The Scotsman feeling the need to come back out on track try and improve on his time. 154.034. My screen says 035, but we're not going to argue over 1,000. As we look at Adrian Warmington, yet to get a time on the board in the number 18 Mercedes. Oh, ouch. Oh, that looks sharp. I would actually say that the effect of hitting that curb is even more drastic than that. Did you clout that curb at Nelson in the Lotus?
I mean, I thankfully I didn't, but I felt that one from here. And
Yeah.
Not only am I watching and not driving, it's also virtual, and I felt it. That was a nasty one, but it is a nasty curb. I've definitely hit it in some other vehicles, let's say, but thankfully not the Lotus. Because I think if I'd hit that in the Lotus wouldn't have made it to the end of the race. But Adrian's going to cross the line now. Is this his first lap of the session? It might be for Adrian Warmington, as he crosses the line, and he does go into P14. So he's got his banker in. Now it's time to get the hammer down and see if he can improve. We still haven't had a lap from this man, Jack Ajewski, so he'll be hoping to do something before the session's up. He's only going to have a couple of cracks at it, though. Same with Chris Pauly. We still haven't seen Pauly set a lap time. We also haven't seen Darren Barris set a lap time, so I wonder if these drivers are just maybe invalidating their laps. It looks like Pauly's not even left the pit lane. Darren Barris certainly seems to have just invalidated every lap. Ajewski seems to have only gotten out the pits recently. He's only on his 4th lap of the session, but Chris Pauly's nowhere to be seen, unfortunately, so a little bit of championship drama early on tonight.
So we'll see. Oh, he's going for a last to first challenge, which in this field is a very, very bold move. The talent from top to bottom is absolutely astounding. Good improvement there from Matt Forrest, and 155.040 puts him into 4th. Do we see a time from Jack Ajewski? We do not see a time from Mr. Ajewski. So again, an invalid lap from the 99 Mercedes. Again, flirting with the grass on the outside line of Ritchie's. That's not going to help. Ben Weston in the very multicolored Porsche sits in 11th at the moment with a 156.920. Come towards the end of the lap now, through Coram into Murray's. Doesn't really catch the apex properly, though. So that's going to cost him a few. And you really do not want to be costing yourself time there, because that mistake carries itself all the way along the center straight. Does he improve, though? He does not. A 57.6 that time around. He will have time to finish this lap, but will not have time to start one afterwards. Only 1.5 minutes of the session to go for a just shy of 2-minute lap time. So Mr. Pauly has just clarified to me why he's sat in the pit lane. Got a penalty last race, so he's excluded from qualifying. So that must have been from race 1 then. Oh no, I bet I know what that was. You remember there was a tangle with Chris and I can't remember who it was. I'm asking you, do you remember? But I can't remember who the tangle was with. But I do recall thinking there may have been, the stewards may have been involved in what Chris was up to, going through the left-hander. Turn 3, turn name's now failing me entirely. I do remember there being an incident now where I think Chris just nudged the back of somebody, sending them into a spin. So that could be what the incident in reference was for. So thank you for clarifying that, Chris. We look forward to your charge through the field then. As we now look at Dan Cross. That is such a cracking livery on the 263 Mercedes. Does he improve? Checker flag is now out, so no more laps can be started. Dan Cross did not improve on that occasion. So who is still out there ready to set a lap time? Let's see. Who can we look at? Ben Weston is coming into Murray's now. 66 Porsche sits in 11th. He is aiming to beat 156.920. Does not do so. Coming into the pit lane. That is the end of his qualifying run. Will start no higher than 11th. Matt Forrest, oh wow, using every pixel of space he can in the very, very colourful Aston Martin. Coming through Oggies onto Williams. Hugs that inside line, keeps the car nice and settled. As you've said before, John, the track is pretty flat. So it is easier in a track like this to keep everything nice and settled. But that being said, still very easy to chuck the lap away.
It certainly is, and it was committed from Forrest. I mean, that's what we want to see through Hamilton. That's the line, using all of the the road, using the netting, whatever you want to call it, outside of the curb, and as much as you can possibly get away with. And yeah, full commitment going on at the moment from Matthew Forrest. He's still second off Ryan Martin, but he's only 2/10 off of Adam Barron just up ahead. So we'll see if he makes an improvement. Just looking at the sector times now, and I can't quite tell if he's on a flyer or not. We'll have to wait and see. His last 2 laps, though, have been remarkably similar, only 1/100th of a second between the two of them. So let's see what happens then as Barron jumps to P2 ahead of Pete Plasto. So that's an improvement for Barron. Will it be a last-minute improvement for Forrest? It's a 55.292, so a couple of tenths slower. Plasto in the pits, and that, I believe, is going to round off our qualifying session. It's the same man on top, Chris, but can he do it in the race?
Oh, wonderful last-ditch do-or-die effort there from Adam Barron. You can never count him out, can you? The number 5 Porsche shows up once again. Superb stuff. But our grid is going to be like so. Front row is going to be Ryan Martin alongside Adam Barron. On row 2 it's Pete Plasto and Matthew Forrest. Merc and Porsche to our Astons. Then row 3 is the Porsche of Tom Stevens alongside the Mercedes of David Ranch. Row 4 is the Merc of Dan Cross next to the Mercedes of Matty Chambers. Row 5, John Finch and his Aston Martin alongside James King, the Lord of the McLarens, on row 5. Row 6 is the Porsche of Ben Weston alongside the Mercedes of Jack Andrzejewski. Row 7 is the McLaren of Steve Wardle alongside Sean Watson's Aston Martin. There's proper syllables in there somewhere.
Sean Waston. Aston.
Or Sean Aston's Watson in on 14th on row 7. On row 8 is Adrian Warmington in his Mercedes alongside the penalised Chris Pawley, our championship leader in his Aston Martin. The back of the field is Darren Berris in his Aston Martin. Half a second at the top of the timing table for Ryan Martin. Can he do it in the race? Well, we know he's capable of it. Let's see if he's able to have the luck of the green, as they say, for race 1 here in Snetterton.
Excited to see how this one plays out. I do apologise, by the way, for not reading up on the penalties from last week. That teaches me. So perhaps we were criticising Darren Berris and Chris Pawley for not or not being sure why they're not setting a lap time, but that makes a lot of sense. So it's going to be interesting to see how far Chris can fight through the field, of course, from that P16 starting spot. Obviously, Darren Berris has got a lot of pace as well, but not quite to the extent that I think Chris Pawley has. I think Chris's aims here will just be to try and get into that reverse grid situation, so somewhere between 6th and 12th. And of course, Chris, this time, not only will it be a reverse grid that we're randomizing between 6 and 12, we'll also be deciding the circuit for the next event. You talked about it briefly in the build-up to the event. We've got 8 tracks that are going to be thrown into the Wheel of Fortune, and one of them is going to come out, and it's going to be the venue for the next round of the championship. We saw Lebanon last season appear in the wheel, which I think we enjoyed a bit more than the drivers, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, that was fabulous, because that was, again, a track I was not familiar with at all. And yeah, it was fascinating to see. It was a real roller coaster, that particular circuit. That was great fun to watch. But yeah, I don't think the drivers enjoyed it as much as we did. But that is the nature of the beast, though, isn't it? That's part of the allure of the random track, so that it catches people a bit more off guard. So those that that don't necessarily have all the time in the world to practice, a bit more of a level playing for them.
We can also reveal now, if you want, the 8 tracks that we're going to be between. Where we've got Virginia International Raceway, Oschersleben, Winton, Lime Rock, Laguna Seca, the Charlotte Roval. That's going to be exciting. Oran Park, and Okayama. So it's going to be between those 8 circuits to see which one will be happening next week. But obviously, the focus right now, of course, is on Snetterton and that run down to the first complex. It's a very fast turn 1 here through Rich's double apex. It's going to be interesting to see who tries to send one down the inside, whether drivers are going to take it a bit easy. But obviously, it's all about setting up that overtaking opportunity into Montreal. And we do often see incidents down at Montreal in lap 1, simply as well, Chris, because it's such a wide corner. There's so much space on the outside. Drivers sometimes do go committed and go in kind of deep to try and run around the outside, take advantage of it. But sometimes you get caught out by being the long way around. So it's a tricky one. But obviously, these drivers will be making their decisions as they go. They might try and pre-prepare. You might try and have an idea of where you're going to end up. But I can almost guarantee you that whatever you think is going to happen, it's not going to be how it plays out. So you have to be able to think on your feet.
So very true. So the pace car then leading them through Coram for the first time tonight. As always, as is customary in this series, a rolling start will then see our first 15-minute race of the night begin. Into Murray's. Oh, that's going to put Ryan Martin through all the marbles, but he should be able to. He should be fine on his first braking attempt into Richie's. Now the nerves do rise, and I tell you what, I can assure you the roar you get when the lights go out is fantastic here at Snetterton. Lights go on. We are racing. Pete Plasto is not wasting any time whatsoever. Getting the pressure on Adam Barron. He's already nosed ahead of the Porsche as Ryan Martin got a good jump on Adam Barron. So Adam possibly caught a little bit napping there, but it's got a good run through the right-hander of Richie's. Noses back ahead of the Aston. So it is Martin from Barron from Plasto. Your top three. Oh, a little bit of impact. Well held there from Adam Barron. Lots of fidgeting further back, as you would imagine. I think everybody has survived. So far, so good.
Paulie up to P13, so we'll keep one eye on the progression of Chris. But everything looked pretty clean and tidy through the opening few corners. Martin managed to get the jump. It was Plasto who was putting the pressure on Barron, and all of a sudden, Martin's got that gap. And there's a spin there. It's going to be David Wrench going around again, but he's always been pushed back in the correct direction. We think that was potentially contact with, was it Cross on the inside? I don't want to presume.
I think. What?
May have been Matty Chambers. It's hard to tell, but either way, whoever it was that hit him seemed to fix him again, which is obviously great to see. So Wrench has managed to keep on going in P8. Meanwhile, it's King and Finch 9th and 10th, and Ryan Martin with a 7/10 lead out in front. And that is the clean air he needs to try and break away in front of this field.
Absolutely true, as we are currently watching James King in the McLaren under all kinds of pressure from the bright green Aston Martin of Finch. Right behind him as Tom Stevens has gotten ahead of Matt Forrest, coming down into the braking zone of Brundle and Nelson for the first time in anger. So Adam Barron's had a good run actually through the nimble Porsches had a good run through Nelson and Brundle and then through Bombhole. Dan Cross is under pressure from Matty Chambers. Now coming down to the Coram, so the bright pink accented car is going to have the inside line all the way through Coram. Dan Cross is going to have no argument against that. Oh, but that's too wide, so just a tiny touch of the grass there from Matty Chambers. Just lost him the grip at the crucial moments. He's got to be very careful how he rejoins. Finds a gap just ahead of Warmington and rejoins the race. But that is just, I said that if you're going to make a mistake, don't do it in Coram. It's so dangerous to do it there. But here's Plasto on the back of Barron. Is the Porsche going to have to defend heavily into Wilson? He does, manages to shut the door. But that gap for Ryan Martin is disintegrated. Adam Barron now on a charge.
Eventually a small mistake from Martin into Brundle and Nelson just to close that gap down. We didn't see it. Maybe he was just taking it easy on lap one. But yeah, Barron and Plasto definitely capitalising on that. They're going to try desperately to stick in the slipstream of the Scotsman in that white Mercedes. If you're wondering, by the way, why the liveries changed, there was a bit of an issue with the liveries earlier. So we thought Ryan Martin might have had a bright new paint scheme, but that was just an error on our side. So that's now fixed, and that's why you're seeing different liveries. So it's not a different driver, it's not a different Ryan Martin, it's the same one. But half a second now between the lead two. The incident there with Chambers, yeah, it was interesting. I don't know if he did touch the grass. It's hard to tell. Maybe he did. I also wonder if if he just locked up the rears and the back came around to him, because it's obviously a tricky trail braking zone. I couldn't quite tell from that shot. But either way, it's a disaster losing it there at Coram. Did well to rejoin safely, although it did cost Warmington a little bit. As we see Paulie now side by side with the Juski, and Paulie's going to make that move stick. So through goes Chris Paulie, already into the top 10. So that's, 5-6 positions gained from Paulie already. And now he's going to be chasing John Finch and James King for the top 8.
That was well driven actually from both of them. Jack and Duty could have tried to hold the racing line, tried to get the apex. He was ahead, strictly speaking, at the point of the apex, but Chris Paulie held his nerve, held the line, and got the position back. Ryan Martin has now checked out up front to the tune of 1.2, 1.3 seconds, but Adam Barron has got his rear view mirror completely green with the nose of the Aston Martin of Pete Plasto. They come through Murray's, and there's the gap there leading up to Ryan Martin. So, like you say, John, it could well have been a mistake at Brundle and Nelson for the Mercedes. And look how defensive Adam Barron had to go on the run into Richie's. That will compromise his exit speed a little bit. It's such a short run up to the Wilson hairpin. Not going to compromise him too much. The Porsche goes straight for that apex. Pete Plasto tries to come back underneath. Not enough for him to do it. These two really locked in a duel. Whilst they're doing that, Tom Stevens and Matt Forrest right behind them, arguing for fourth position, with Dan Cross and David Wrench Bear in mind, David Wrench had that half spin, and with James King up in the 8th position in the McLaren, they're in a three-way fight, or near enough, for 6th place.
Plasto really using the grunt of that Aston to draw close to Adam Barron in the Porsche. Here's a replay, meanwhile, of Matty Chambers, and yeah, it looks like he did actually just lose the rear. I don't know if there was maybe a push from behind or just... The thing is that the car is loaded up in a certain way there, so you're on the brakes, you're turning the car, there's a lot of weight transfer going on, there's a lot on the front nose, and if you just get that car slightly too imbalanced, maybe your brake bias is slightly too far to the front, it can just unsettle the car. And unfortunately, that's what it seemed like happened to Matty Chambers, and obviously it cost him a lot of time as well. But yeah, just heading into turn 1 there, Barron did go defensive, and obviously he's pretty much at this point admitted defeat to Ryan Martin in terms of keeping with him. Although saying that, they've halved the gap again, so I don't know what's happening there. But Barron's suddenly gone from 1.3 back to 7/10 again. So I don't know if Ryan's losing time in a specific section, or maybe it's just another little mistake from Ryan Martin. I don't think you gain 6/10 on Ryan Martin. I think he loses 6/10. So it'd be interesting to see what's happening there. But either way, he's staying together as Sean Watson is unfortunately facing the wrong direction in his Aston Martin. So he's going to drop way off the back of the field. Unfortunate there for Sean.
Remember, it's Sean Atson racing his Watson. Remember that.
That's correct. I did almost say that non-ironically, and it's going to be something that I'm going to struggle with now. Once again, though, Plasto looking to the inside into turn 1, but this time Barron doesn't need to go defensive. The gap back up to 8/10 again, but they're still right there.
Well, fastest lap of the race is changing hands. It was briefly with Adam Barron, now with Chris Pawley, the first man in race trim, into the 54s. That last lap was only 3/10 slower for Ryan Martin, so it could have been a bit of a mistake there, combined with a really quick lap from Adam Barron, which halved that gap. Oh, was that Aston flirting with the grass on the exit of Palmer, down towards Agostini once more. It could be that the Porsche might be a little bit stronger in some of the twisty areas, although, again, doesn't look to be the case. I think it was just a combination of slightly slower lap from Ryan Martin, coupled with a faster lap from Adam Barron. But you could argue, what might have been if Chris Pawley hadn't had that penalty applied on him, he'd be right up there with this particular group. That being said, he is in 8th and worked his way through the field, has the fastest lap at the moment. It's the lead 3 now come through Williams onto the Bentley straight, and that half a second gap is going to disintegrate. Is that Porsche very much in the slipstream, really closing that gap down? Ryan Martin will be well aware that pesky little Porsche is not disappearing anywhere. So it doesn't look like Ryan Martin's going to do what he did in race 1, Dalton Park, and just run off. He's got some racing to do.
Confusing. I'm a bit baffled at the moment. I mean, Ryan Martin, he had a 6/10 gap on everyone in qualifying, but so far in this race, his fastest is a 55.49. Meanwhile, the guys behind him are both doing 55.2. So it'll be interesting to see what this lap time is. We haven't seen any big mistake from Ryan. It seems like it's been fairly neat and tidy on this particular lap. So I'm interested to see if they're all a bit quicker here. Or not, but Martin seems to be losing time in the middle sector. We've seen that a couple of times already, and it was a 55.1 there from Ryan Martin, but a 54.9 from Adam behind. So it looks like these guys might just have the pace to stick with him for now. I don't know if Martin's just maybe missing something in that middle sector that he's going to find a bit later on. I did say during the build-up that this track is all about rhythm. You know, if you just get out of rhythm, if you can't quite spot your line, maybe you've made the same mistake once or twice, you lose a bit of confidence. It can be very, very tricky to regain that. So perhaps that's what we're seeing with Ryan Martin, but I wouldn't be surprised if he does unlock a new gear and stroll away a little bit later on, but I'm very much enjoying the fact that that's not the case right now.
Absolutely so. A trifecta of Mercedes here with Darren Cross, David Wrench, and Chris Pawley all aligned astern, ready to do battle for what is 6th position. So Chris Pawley has been slowly reeling them in. He has got a gap, though, between Dan Cross and Matt Forrest, Aston Martin down the road. So, look at you, Mr. Finch. Yes, we saw that. Flirting very much with the grass on the exit of Agostini, almost chucking the rear into the dust, but managing to keep the machinery pointing the right way as Jack Kajewski gets back ahead of Steve Wardle. Steve Wardle's lost another position in his McLaren, so has he made a mistake somewhere? Not entirely certain. Adam Barron's just had a lag moment there, which upset the tower. Very, very close again to Ryan Martin. I wonder if Pete Plasto is just biding his time here. We saw that early pace, those early challenges from the Aston. Has he backed off a little bit to keep that slipstream, allow Adam now muddling up the names of our top 2, Adam Barron to close in on Ryan Martin, So the slipstream between Porsche and Mercedes is there, which Pete Plasto will also benefit from. So sensible racing from the Aston Martin, if that is what Pete is doing. Whoops, no, then chuck it in the wall. I'm just saying how well you're driving and how sensibly you're driving. You then flirt with the concrete. Fastest lap of the race now, going to the Porsche 154.727. A tenth quicker than Ryan Martin. I think Ryan Martin is really going to have to think about how he's going to have to defend the remaining third of the race.
100%. I mean, Martin once again has gone quicker than previous laps, and Adams bettered him for the 4th or 5th lap in a row. So it's on. It's certainly on. And we saw as well, Ryan was struggling a little bit to get that Mercedes in through Coram. He ran a little bit wide. Now, there are a few different lines you can sort of take through Coram. You can try and widen it a little bit in order to focus on your exit at the final corner, but in that situation, it just looked like he lost a bit on Barron and didn't really get it back. Although now, looking at the tower, perhaps Barron's lost a bit of that time back, and then it swings back towards him. It's ebbing and flowing. Meanwhile, David Wrench down the inside of Cross for P6. Dan Cross is going to try and hold on around the outside, but Wrench has got an overlap. He's not going to make it happen, though. And now this, of course, brings in Chris Pauley, who's not going to be in a good position now, heading into this. Oh, look how close that's getting. That's incredibly close through Hamilton and then through into Augies. It looked like Pauley did the sensible thing and backed out because you do not want to be on the outside heading through Hamilton. But Pauley, I mean, he's made good progress. He's kind of stagnated now in P8, but if he can get past Wrench and Forrest, and well, there's him past Forrest.
Oh dear, the Aston Martin having a moment on the exit of Williams. I suspect he's hit something very, very hard. He's missing a significant part of his nose. So I wonder whether he's... we have a replay of what has happened to the Aston Martin. That's on the exit of Augies. He turned in very suddenly there, so they upset the nose. The tails let go, and momentum has just carried him on into the crash barrier. Yep, the wall is going to win that one on every occasion. But, Sean Watson's had difficulties. We've seen him spin already in the 89 Aston. What has happened here? Got in too hot there, sir, and the grass is not going to like you for that on the outside of Palmer. We brought it to a very sudden stop, and it's still going there. But yeah, I suspect this will be the end of the race for Matt Forrest. Yeah,
that's a lot of damage on the front of the Aston, but he's going to keep on going.
He's going to carry on going.
He's only got 3 minutes to go, so I mean, only a couple of laps left already. This race has flown by. What a surprise! In the AFVRC, I will not pretend to be shocked. It does look though like Martin's got it under control. He's kind of, he's kept that gap close now. They've matched on 54.7s the last couple of laps. So it's kind of, even if Barron can keep with Martin, obviously getting past him is going to be another thing altogether. And Plasto remains right on the back of Adam Barron. Meanwhile, we've got this battle going on now between Ben Weston and Chambers in 11th. So we'll see who comes out of this on top, and both of them using all of the road. Chambers using a bit more than Weston. Of course, this is the recovering Chambers after his incident into the last corner on the first lap. But he's still in contention now for a reverse grid slot. Just remember, it's between 6th and 12th position that gets reversed. So if you can finish in that top 12, you've got a chance. But the higher up the order, the more of a chance you've got of getting into that reverse grid mix. And he's not going to make a move, though, on the way into Augies now, so he's going to try and set himself up for a good run out of Williams. Meanwhile, Ben Weston runs wide, so Weston forced to defend, and he's gone wide. Through goes Chambers. So in fact, he had set him up very well into Augies, forced the mistake, and through goes the Mercedes.
This three-way fight for what is now 5th position continues. Cross, Wrench, and Pauley, all in Mercedes machinery. Chris Pauley, we know the pace he's got. All three of the drivers have shown incredible pace. David Wrench, particularly at Thruxton, was very, very impressive. So what can these three do as they're coming through Coram for the penultimate time into Murray's? Needs to keep it nice and steady. They're all obviously in the exact same machinery. The setups are all identical, as Ryan Martin has now decided to stop playing with his food and get his right foot down. New fastest lap, 54.717 for our race leader. Side by side now between Cross and Wrench. David Wrench gets up into the lead. Oh, Chris Pauley was barreling there into Ritchie's. I thought that was going to be an accident for sure. Still side by side between Cross and Wrench. Who's going to win out on this one? It does look like it's going to be Dan Cross. Beg your pardon, David Wrench. He's not giving up on it though. David Cross, Dan Cross. I can't get the names right at all. Oh no, impact between the two. So Chris Pauley says, "Thank you very much. I'll have that." Oh no, James King, while minding his own business, thought there was a spot there. Ends up punching Dan Cross in the face. Does nip ahead of the team Mercedes, but that is going to be an uncomfortable final lap for those two.
Yeah, I think if King can get to the end here, he could actually gain a position from that, even though his front end's taking a beating. It depends how much damage he's got on that McLaren. Unfortunately, the innocent party there. It looks like Cross and Wrench got together. I don't know if Wrench left a car's width on the inside, if Cross maybe started understeering. We couldn't tell from that angle, but either way, it was Cross on the inside, Wrench on the outside. Not enough space for both of them. A bit of contact occurred, and then obviously King got caught up in that one with Cross trying desperately to get out of the way and off the road. I think King was already committed to the grass on the inside, so just really unfortunate there. Between those three drivers, it obviously benefits Paulie now, who's up to 5th. So does that mean, hang on, that was a battle for 6th place, so there must have been someone else that's dropped down, because Paulie's now showing in P5. So was that...
Forrest. Matt Forrest. It was battle for P5, was a battle for P6 until Matt Forrest had a spin. So, and the checkered flag doth await. So your winner for race number 1 here in Snetterton is going to be Ryan Martin. Flash of the lights, he's happy with that. Fending off the advances of the Aston is Adam Barron. And a fastest lap to round out the race, of course he does, is Ryan Martin. So it is Ryan Martin from Adam Barron. Pete Plasto rounds out the podium. Tom Stevens comes home in 4th. Chris Paulie from starting down in 16th finishes in 5th. Superb drive. Well done, sir. John Finch comes home in 6th. David Wrench 7th. James King in the potentially wounded McLaren comes home in 8th. Ben Weston 9, and Matt Chambers rounds out the top 10. Darren Berris from starting in last position comes home in 11th. Steve Wardle rounds out the top 12, so could get reverse grid pole if that is the selected number. Jack Ajewski finishes in 13th place with Adrian Warmington in 14th. Matt Forrest, he did choose to continue, so he comes home in 15th. John Watson in the spinning Aston will come home in 16th position. Dan Cross chose to retire his Mercedes. Will start from the back of the grid for race number 2.
Exciting stuff. It all kicked off in the last lap, but you could see how good the battles can be around here. You know, we saw side-by-side action all the way through the opening 3 or 4 corners there between Cross and Wrench specifically, and Paulie obviously benefiting from that, sneaking his way through and picking up a 5th place finish to guarantee himself a reverse grid slot. But I personally, Chris, would love to see a high number here in the reverse grid. I'd love to see 10, 11, or 12 pulled, because I think Ryan Martin obviously showed his class at the end there. He started pulling another 10th and another 10th, and Barron and Plasto just lost a bit of pace. But until that point, with a few minutes to go, Barron and Plasto had the confidence over Ryan Martin, I would say, and they were quicker. So I think for Ryan now, he's going to have to pass those guys if he wants to win the second race. The more cars we have in the mix, the more interesting it's going to be in the reverse grid. Maybe you see the likes of Matty Chambers, who had to spin towards the front, but let's just see what the number brings up.
Yes, well, spin the wheel, production. Let's see how many of our top 6 or top 12 will be reversed. So anywhere from grid position 6 through 12 will have their positions reversed. So it's going to be 8. Mighty creep into 9. It's close. Oh, it's 9. So the top 9 positions will be reversed from the finishing position. That gives the pole to Ben Weston in the Porsche. So then, I'm going to take a screenshot of that because my memory is hopeless at the best of times. So I'm going to grab that so I know where people are going to be starting. So that's going to give the pole to Ben Weston. Then its second will be James King in the McLaren, then David Wrench. Now that's going to be interesting. We saw in Thruxton, didn't we? When he went on the reverse grid, he started towards the front and was able to run off into the distance. So I'm really looking forward to that. John Finch will start 4th, Chris Paulie in 5th, where he finished. Tom Stevens 6th, Pete Plasto 7th, Adam Barron in 8th, Ryan Martin in 9th place. So Matty Chambers will be upset by that, having lost 2 positions in the course of that race. So he'll start in 10th. Darren Barris 11th, Steve Wardle 12th, Jackie Ajewski 13th, Adrian Warmington 14th, Matt Forrest 15th, Sean Watson 16th. Cross will start in the 17th spot. Oh yeah, I'm looking at David Wrench on that one. Looking up previous form, that is going to be a fascinating one to see. If he's able to clear the McLaren and the Porsche quickly, we saw how well he ran off at Thruxton. I'm really looking forward to that.
I think, from memory, I think he was actually 3rd in the opening race at Thruxton, or 2nd in the opening race behind Paulie. So maybe I don't know
Maybe
if
the
it's someone else.
thinking of.
Yeah, maybe. But I think he's been unlucky. He got spun out at Silverstone. He ended up faced the wrong way again at Oulton Park. So it'll be good to see how he can go, because he's clearly got the pace, David Wrench. I don't know if he's as experienced on iRacing as he is in other sims, because I've seen his iRating growing throughout the series. He started off at a very, very low number with a low safety rating, but he's clearly got the pace that would put him right in the mix here. So I think David Wrench, potentially inexperienced on iRacing relative to the others, but not lacking in skill and ability and potential for sure. So I'm really, really excited, regardless, to see him towards the front of the grid. Third place behind King and Weston. King will be looking for his second Snetterton podium in 2 seasons, after being a bit unfortunate there at the end of that race. Lucky to survive in the end, really, to come home P8. And obviously Ben Weston on the pole position. It's going to be interesting to see how Martin, Barron and Plasto make their way through the field. Paulie could be the one to watch here as well, of course, because we know how fast Paulie is. And he's going to have a few cars in between him and his championship rival at the moment, Ryan Martin. So, I mean, my money would probably be on Paulie for this one at this stage, but there's still plenty to play out here. And obviously it's a short race as well. So lap 1 is going to be absolutely crucial, Chris.
And probably chaotic at the same time, as the reverse grid races tend to be. But we do have our 3 podium finishes in the waiting room ready to come to us. So I suppose we should do this in reverse order, shouldn't we? Let's have a word with Plasto, especially as I have been getting his name throughout the course of the night. Let's ask. I've put it. Where have I put him? I've moved him, but I moved him to the wrong place.
The wrong commentary box.
Wrong commentary box. He'll probably be confused because I've just moved him. There we go. Let's do that properly. For God's sake, Buxton. Yeah, it's not like I've only just started doing this. Hey, Plasto, are you with us?
Yes. Good evening. How are you?
My apologies, sir. I put you in the wrong place when I moved you. Well, you tried and you tried and you tried, but the pesky Porsche just kept you at bay.
Yeah, I just couldn't quite get the exits and get a good run. It's so difficult around here to get a better exit than the guy in front of you.
Does the Aston have a particular advantage anywhere? Is it the longer straights where the Aston can get the horses galloping? Is that where the Aston
get around here? Around here, it doesn't feel like it's got advantage anywhere, but that's just the way it is, I guess.
And yeah, still a very, very strong podium for you. Are you pleased with that, or do you think that,
I think that's all I could expect. I was glad that I don't know what happened to I've forgotten his name now. The other Mercedes that's I think he's the championship leader at the moment. I've forgotten his name.
Yeah, Chris Bawley. He finished in 5th. He started 16th. Okay. He was not allowed to take part in qualifying due to a penalty from last race. He actually finished in 5th. So
that explains it. Okay.
Yeah, he's gonna be a bit of a handful, we think.
Yeah, I think he will be. I don't know what the reverse grid is. Have you done that yet? I don't know.
Yeah. Yes. Top 9 is the reverse grid, so that will put you in 7th.
Oh, that should be interesting. Okay.
So yes, that is. We're very much looking forward to that. Was Snetterton around? You were looking forward to? I probably asked you that last week, so I can't remember what the answer was.
Not really, to be honest. I'm not too fond of this place.
Yes, I now I remember when you said that. That was what you said.
I don't know who designed that last little complex. I don't know who designed that, but yeah, not too fond of that.
So again, is the aspiration for race 2 just to survive, or have you got a position in mind?
I think so. It'd be nice to beat Adam. Yeah, I'll let him have the first one, and we'll see what he does with the second.
Great stuff. Any questions, John?
I mean, were you a bit surprised that you guys kept with Ryan? Okay, I mean, he seemed to be struggling a little bit early on.
I think he was just taking it a little bit easy, securing the win, and then in the last 2 laps, I think you'll notice that he dropped the hammer to get the fastest lap. But yeah, he was absolutely rapid in qualifying, so I'll expect him to take off a bit in this one.
Awesome stuff. Well, best of luck for the reverse grid race of the next round, and we look forward to speaking to you again. Thank you very much, Pete Plasto.
Cheers, have a great day.
Our second place finisher then is the Porsche of Adam Barron. Adam, are you with us?
Evening, gents. How are you?
Always a pleasure to speak to you, Adam, but my God, did you have a lot to do?
Yeah, I think I've just said I needed like 6 pairs of eyes to see what was happening in front of me and behind. So.
Oh my God! So you closed in on Ryan. He got a little bit more on you there. It was just constantly ebb and flow. So where did the Porsche have any particular advantage over the Merc or the Aston, or was it just just a constant game of cat and mouse?
Well, after qualifying, I thought Ryan, that was it. He was going to disappear off into the distance, and then in the race, I was pleasantly surprised. But it turns out I've just been speaking to him in the room, and he was somewhat keeping his nose clean and not going at full 10 tenths. So that would explain why we managed to keep it up with him. But it was good. It was. It's all about the slipstream in that circuit as well. If you're within, I think, 1.5 seconds, then you're in a shout getting pulled along by the other car. So I think that helped a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and it really kept the racing interesting. There was a load of great battles right behind you. The reverse grid has come up with 9, so you'll be starting in 8th position. Certainly Chris Pauly demonstrated how well you can overtake by gaining 11 positions. Are you confident on getting a podium again?
Yeah, well, you know what these second races are like, guys. They always seem to throw up a few incidents here and there, last round included. But obviously, yeah, Renchi's up there, Chris Pauly's up there, so I expect them to, if they can clear the pack and get ahead, then it might be difficult for us to catch them. But we'll see what we can do. It should be good fun.
Excellent. Any questions, John?
Are you gonna keep Pete at bay? Obviously, that's the wrong way of saying it. You're going to be starting right behind him, but obviously you kept him at bay last time. So do you think you're going to get him again?
Yeah, I was talking to him just then. It was last season. I was ahead of him for most of the race, and then on the last corner, he threatened to send one up the inside, and he put me completely off and nipped me at the line for the win. So I'm holding that against him. So I'm trying to make sure that I get the last lap over him this year.
Excellent. Good luck.
Cheers.
Yes, we look forward to that. I'm sure we will be speaking to you again soon. Best of luck on the second race of the night, and well done on the second place. Thank you very much, Adam Barron.
Yeah, it should be a good race. Cheers, guys.
Right then, we know what comes next. Let's have a chat to another victory under his belt. Ryan Martin, you with us?
Good evening.
Good evening, good sir. So, from demonstrating quite how much pace you had in qualifying, you decided to play with your food and tease everybody throughout the race, and then dropped the hammer and ran off to claim the fastest lap. I mean, a class of 1, so well done.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I've had a word with the guys in P2 and P3, and it sounded like they were being a little bit too positive after the race, and then I had to abruptly drop them on their bums, explain to them that I was maybe just not pushing as hard as what I could have. Because this season so far, I've had a terrible habit of spinning the car for some reason. So I took the opportunity and thought, right, let's just keep the car on the black stuff, keep it pointing forward, and don't make any mistakes.
Well, you were helped by a monsoon in Thruxton, in fairness.
Indeed, indeed. The world's biggest puddle, I believe it was called.
What, the entire track, you mean?
Yes, it's in the record books.
Oh, great stuff. So the reverse grid has come up with 9. So, of course, you'll be starting in 9th position. Are you looking at top spot again? You've done it before. So surely that's going to be the target at a circuit that certainly has several overtaking opportunities within it. You confident?
Yes, I think so. I came back from 15th at Silverstone. Obviously, that was a longer race. But I think from P9, the guys in front of me, they're all sensible racers. So if I do try and outbrake somebody, I'm sure that they won't be doing anything silly. But again, last week you seen an incident that took place, so I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen this week. Keep everything clean, and if I don't get to the front, I don't get to the front. But the main thing is to have a bit of competition and race against each other. So hopefully that is what we see in the second race. But at the same time, I obviously do want to get to the front and get another victory.
Yeah, can't blame you for that at all, sir. Any questions, John?
Is this the new Ryan Martin that we're expecting to see for the rest of the season now? Is it slightly erring on the side of caution, Ryan, learning from his mistakes, Ryan, or do you think original race winning needing Ryan is going to come back out a little bit later on?
It really depends on how the season goes. If I can stay chilled out, sensible Ryan, and still win races, then he'll be here to stay. So you may have a little bit less chaos to watch, but hopefully I'll have more points in the bank.
We could do with both Ryans. That'd be fun.
I'll give it a go.
Bring him out. Yeah, bring him out for the next one.
Look forward to it, whichever Ryan we get. Brilliant win once again, and we look forward to speaking to you again. Thank you very much, Ryan Martin.
Thank you.
Well, so okay, so we are going to be heading to the race session very, very shortly. as mentioned, it is going to be Ben Weston starting from the top spot. James King alongside. So it'll be interesting to see what the McLaren is able to do. It doesn't look like the McLaren really has the pace that is needed for to overcome the Astons and the Mercs around them. Then David Wrench. We heard Adam Barron mention David Wrench in particular. That's a driver I'm certainly keeping an eye on. Will be starting in third position. John Finch in the bright green Aston will be alongside him. Then Chris Pawley, incredible pace. Did have the fastest lap for a while, but he will start in fifth position. We'll see what he is able to do from there. Merc. Then it is Tom Stevens joining him on row 3 in the Porsche. Then Pete Plasto and Adam Barron. They've been pretty inseparable all night. They will be starting alongside each other on row 4. Ryan Martin, mini race victor, will be starting alongside Matty Chambers on row 5. Darren Berris and Steve Wardle have row 6 to themselves, with Jack Ajitski and Adam Warmington having row 7. Matthew Forrest and Dan Cross, on row 8. Sean Watson, the back of the field in the number 80 Aston. Oh, yes. Looking forward to this. Broken record statement, and I make no apologies for saying it. I love a reverse grid race. I love Snetterton. This is a highlight for me, this particular combination. First race was absolutely spectacular, and with the added chaos that we tend to see the reverse grid race, this would be absolutely spectacular.
Certainly should. I've stopped feeling bad about repeating myself. We're talking about how excited I am for the next race in the series, because it's just that interesting. I really do think this one, though, I think Wrench is going to have the pace of the top 3. I think Paulie is going to have the pace of the top 5. But I think Ryan Martin's going to have the overall pace. You know, he definitely sounded like he was holding something back there. I know we were joking about it, and Ryan was saying, it's a new Ryan, it's sensible Ryan. From P9 on the grid, we're not going to see that Ryan. We're going to see Ryan who wants to get to the front of the grid. I'd be very impressed if we didn't. But, hey, that's what it's all about. And he's going to go out there. I'm sure he's going to want to get to the front of the grid quickly. And if he does have a half a second in hand, I think, it could be maybe Wrench, Paulie, and Martin coming together towards the end, potentially. It's all about whether Wrench can get out in front. Can Paulie follow him through? But, lap 1 of these reverse grid races, Chris, so many times it's just thrown the order up in the air. So you never know what you're going to get. I'm excited to see what happens.
Yeah, you and me both, John. You and me both. Now, viewers may wonder how these cars can behave so differently. Even the same make of car, if they're all the exact same setups, how do they behave so differently? It's purely down to how well you adapt to it, your driving style, and how well you drive as a racer. It all comes down to the fleshy, organic bit behind the wheel to make the difference. Lights come on. We are racing. Oh, lots of side-by-side. Jackie Juski chucks himself into the wall coming down the start-finish straight. But who is going to be bravest on the brakes? The little Porsche of Ben Weston's got a good few car lengths to himself. He manages to keep it on the straight, narrowing the tail, getting lively in the Porsche. But that's David Wrench already at the second. Oh, noses into the lead. He's going to have the outside line coming through Wilson. That's not going to help his Mercedes keep the lead. Chris Pawley into third. Stevens fourth. There's spins. Adam Barron is fallen down to the back of the field. So one of our championship protagonists is right the way down the back. Matty Chambers has had a spin as well.
Yeah, Chambers made contact there and headed towards the wall. So that's the second first lap that's gone wrong for him. Meanwhile, it's Wrench and Paulie at the front. It's the two that we thought might make their way to the front, but it's happened straight away. Meanwhile, Ryan Martin is in P7, so he's still behind Plasto. Obviously, he's got past Barron, who's had an issue that we missed, as that looks like Watson spinning off. What was it again? I'm not even going to try it. So Paulie 4/10 behind Wrench, middle of the lap. So Wrench, we're now going to see what he's made of. Can David hang on here? With the stressful situation, he's got a very fast driver behind him, so I'm not expecting Wrench to hang on for the win here, but I'd love to see him make a good effort of this. Meanwhile, this is what's happened with Barron. So yeah, he's squeezed out a little bit by Ryan Martin, but unfortunately that looked like Finch on the outside, and it was one of those situations where 3 cars tried to go into a space that was probably about 2 cars wide, and unfortunately it kind of sandwiched Barron in the wrong way, and then that was actually the aftermath there. So it was Finch coming back on that then moved Chambers to the right, and then he made contact with Darren Berris, and off went Chambers. Honestly, we've only looked at it once from a quick replay, but I would have to say it looked like a racing incident on the most part there. It looked like too many drivers in a small space, basically. Yeah,
I quite agree there. As Ryan Martin gets ahead with James King, the McLaren force to the outside line comes in. Gorham, as David Wrench, he's gone too deep on the ace of the Murrays. That is going to be costly. Chris Pauly could well capitalise on that. May well have the lead before they get down to Ritchie's. They're almost side by side as they come over the line. Wrench from Pauly, from Stevens, your top three. Pauly having looked to the outside. That is not going to work. Coming to the first time, it had to get out of that, as David Wrench was a little bit slower than Chris Pauly, I think, was expecting. Really had to slow that one down, as that's James King and Jakajewski has gone off the track. Big move there from Wrench, gone on the inside line into Wilson. Can Chris Pauly do anything about it? No, not quite. Wrench manages to fend off the advances of the number 88. Tom Stevens is not far behind. Then Plasto, then Martin. They've lost their usual stablemate of Adam Barron, down in 14th position, some distance back. James King side by side with Ben Weston as they're challenging for 6th position. As we always find, it is going off all over the place.
Pauly's putting so much pressure on David Wrench right now, but at the moment, Wrench holding firm in P1. Pauly knows he needs to get this move done as soon as possible because there is a lurking Scotsman in the background. That is Ryan Martin in P5. Plasto and Martin getting past Weston in that lap. Then King's also got past Weston, so they're now up into the top 6. Stevens, the kind of middleman here in P3, hanging on to the back of these front two. So if anything happens between Wrench and Pauly, which it certainly could, do not count out Tom Stevens, because we know Stevens has race-winning pedigree. We know he's a fast driver as well. But Wrench doing the job so far, holding on under so much pressure from Pauly. Stevens right in behind, and then Plasto, of course, the cork in the bottle, because Ryan Martin will need to get past the very fast Pete Plasto if he wants to get up to the front here. Pauly will be desperate to get this move done early so he can run away.
Very true, but like you say, he's got some very, very fast racing machinery around him to try and make that happen. As our lead group come through Coram once again, the top 5 all together. Wrench from Pauly, from Stevens, from Plasto, from Martin is the group in question. A little bit of a gap between 2nd and 3rd, but here we go again. David Wrench sticking to the racing line this time, not feeling the need to defend that inside line. Fastest lap of the race, well, briefly in the hands of David Wrench, of course, being snatched up by Ryan Martin as the race continues. Tom Stevens doing a bit of exploration work on the exit of Ritchie's, gave Pete Plasto the opportunity on the inside line. Coming up to Wilson, could not make it stick. These 5 bunch up once again. Absolutely fantastic. The more they fight, the more they can invite James King to try and catch up on them. As Chambers and Wardle swap round in 13th position. Where is Adam Barron? He's up to 11th position, closing down the gap to Dan Cross and Matt Forrest, and also Ben Weston as Pauly and Wrench swap round. A good inside manoeuvre for Chris Pauly on the inside line of Agostini. He has managed to get the lead this time. Can he hang on to it?
Great move from Pauly, late on the brakes, down the inside. Wrench just left enough room. Hard, great racing, but at the end of the day, Pauly gets the move done, gets it stuck, and takes the position. So now it's going to be a case of, can Plasto and Stevens have a go at the back of Wrench? Wrench has obviously got decent pace as well, though, so who knows, maybe Wrench can get back in that slipstream and follow Pauly through. But this is where it's going to get interesting now, because you've got Ryan Martin on the back of this train, you've got Wrench now, potentially the cork in the bottle, with Pauly making an attempt to break away at the front. We haven't had a chance yet, Chris, to see Pauly's true pace, because of course he was at the back of the grid last time out. We haven't seen him at the front, so this is going to be a key moment as, wow, Ryan Martin got so close to the back of Pete Plasto between Brundle and Nelson. We talked about that being a very difficult braking zone through Brundle, and Martin's showing you just how close you can get getting away with it. Maybe that was a little bit of the old Ryan Martin coming through there, but he didn't make contact, to be fair to him. So he's being nice and gentle, he's being careful, but he's going to have to get a shift on, Chris, because he's only got 9 minutes to go, and he's got 4 cars to pass.
Pete Plasto had the momentum, but not the space to try and get past Tom Stevens up into 3rd position there. Yeah, I mean, Pete needs to open the boot. Ryan was that close. And the Porsche defends that inside line coming up towards Ritchie's. That's going to wrong foot Stevens. Really wrong foots him. Sends him too deep. Ryan Martin says, thank you, I'll have that position as well. So that puts Pete Plasto up into podium contention. Chris Pauly is stretching his legs a little bit as we see Matty Chambers under pressure from Jakajewski. Jack's done a little bit of raw mowing in the course of the race. These two still side by side, coming up towards Wilson once again as Chambers gets that inside line, reclaims that position. They've also got, I think it might be somebody else with them, not entirely certain. The top 4 are still very much together. Tom Stevens, that one mistake cost him quite dearly. Here's Dan Cross in the middle of quite a group, so that's Weston from Forrest, from Cross, from Adam Barron on the back of it, and Adam Barron has gotten ahead of Dan Cross. The Mercedes going a little bit too deep into Agostini there, and so that puts Adam Barron back inside the top 10.
I'm amazed Chambers has still got 4 wheels on his car, because that was a big incident he had on lap 1. So the Merc made of strong stuff. Baron right in the middle here as well. Another man recovering from an issue on lap 1, currently P10. And that's him behind Matthew Forrest, now going to look for the run. Dan Cross, another man who had issues in race 1, recovering. And will be interesting to see what happens here, heading now down towards Brundle and Nelson. It's a good run from Baron, so he's going to pull out the slipstream, go to the outside. Meanwhile, Finch and King side by side just up ahead, but it's going to be Baron on the outside, Forrest on the inside, so Baron's then going to make that move. He's going to have the inside line into Nelson. There's going to be no cutback. Meanwhile, Dan Cross, though, does do a bit of a crossover, and he's now got the overlap on Matthew Forrest as they head into... Oh, that was so close, heading into Bomb Hole. But he's still got the inside line heading into Coram. This is where they're going to go too wide all the way around here, but he's not going to be able to hang on around the outside of Coram. Surely it would give you the inside into Murray's. He is going to hang on, you know, he's going down the inside into Murray's. They stay side by side, still no contact between these two, and they come out of the last corner almost side by side still. Superb racing between the two of them. This is Cross and, of course, Forrest side by side. Meanwhile, Baron and Weston side by side as well out in front, and Baron gets that move done up into P8. So some fantastic racing going on in the midfield. Looks like Cross has held off Forrest for the time being.
Wow, my goodness me. This is absolutely superb stuff. So as we cut back to our group for what is technically a battle for second, as Chris Pauly has given himself a bit of a gap as Ryan Martin has a look on the inside line of Agostini. Can't get it done. P. Plasto also looking to try and wrong foot David Reds. The Mercedes having none of it, as Tom Stevens is trying his best to close in on the big engines ahead of him. Ryan Martin, nearly dives on the inside of Pete Plasto. Coming up into Oggies, does not quite get it done. It's going to cost him a tiny bit of momentum, but nothing too drastic. Such a short run up to Williams. Now onto the Bentley straight. David Wrench, I don't really think he's going to have too much of a defence here, as the Aston Martin gets into the slipstream, gets his hammer down. Is he going to make the move? He thinks about it, decides that discretion is a better part of valor. The Porsche of Tom Stevens is getting back involved in this group for second.
Bit of a mistake from Wrench through Brundle Nelson. He's lost 6 tenths. I say Wrench. It was Pauly, I mean to say. Pauly was actually up to 1.6 seconds ahead there. Looked like he was pretty much secure, and I was going to make a comment on that, and then all of a sudden he's only a second ahead. So it's not quite over and done with for the race win, and Plasto gets a bit eager on the inside of Wrench. Wrench goes straight on. I think there was maybe a bit of a nudge there. And Ryan Martin now looking to capitalise on Plasto, but he's not going to have it done at this point. Stevens, as you say, close in behind as well. And you could barely see Ryan Martin behind the Aston Martin in front there of Pete Plasto, but Martin's going to look to the inside now towards the first corner. He's got an overlap. Plasto's going to have to leave the room, and through goes Martin into P3. So it's now going to be, as long as he can hold on here down into Montreal Hairpin, which it looks like he's done, Martin versus Wrench for P2, but there's only 5 minutes left. Time is running out if Ryan Martin wants to win this race, but the time is certainly not out when it comes to the actual excitement of the battles, because we're going to have this from this moment until the checkered flag. I am sure so many battles going on throughout the field. I have no idea where to look, Chris.
Yeah, that is a really difficult call. So we are looking at Matthew Forrest, who's at the back of a three-way battle for 9th position. James King in the McLaren, looking at the back of the brightly coloured Aston Martin of John Finch ahead. Right behind him is Adam Barron, looking to try and gain a few more positions. That's Dan Cross defending against Forrest in the very art colour scheme Aston Martin behind. They're still trying to put the pressure on Ben Weston in the Porsche. Coming up to Oggies now. The Mercedes gets very, very close. Can't get the overlap. They come through, like you say, John, only a few minutes remaining. And battles all over the place still. Very, very intense. Ben Weston must be feeling all the pressure in the world at the moment. So Jack Ajewski is out of this race, and we're now going to go see why. That was his battle with Matty Chambers. Oh, they came together, and that unfortunately just catapults the 99 Mercedes very, very hard into the wall. That spelled the end of Jack Ajewski's race. Huge shame for him, as Dan Cross has a look in the inside of Bomb Hole. Still can't wrong foot the Porsche.
Look to the outside, but he's actually got a bit crossed up there and managed to gather it all together. Forrest on the back of him as well. We'll now see what the line is through the last corner. So it's a bit defensive from Weston, and it looks like, yeah, as I expected, Cross is going to get the better exit. Weston actually almost lost the rear there of the Porsche on exit, and that's going to bring Forrest right into the mix as well. So it could be it's still not necessarily over for Cross here. Meanwhile, we've just seen Ryan Martin get past David Wrench for P2, so we'll keep one eye on that battle. You can see them there. That looks like he got the move done into Montreal, but we were obviously just before then seeing Cross, Forrest, Weston all very, very close together, but Cross has come out in front of Forrest, in front of Weston, so that one's been resolved for now. This is the thing though, 9/10 of a second now for Martin to Pauly. I think the speed difference is oh, there's contact between Plasto on the back of that was of course David Wrench. He's taking the bumper off the car. Tell you what, David Wrench did well to keep that under control, because that could have been a mammoth shunt, and I think Plasto may be relinquishing the position there from David Wrench. That could have gotten very ugly into Agostini.
Oh, I thought that was going to be a big old mess leading into Agostini, but they still managed to keep it going. Here's a replay of it. So there's the nudge from Pete Plasto, just slightly got the braking zone wrong between himself and David Wrench, but David Wrench back up into third. I think the Aston Martin letting them, yeah, you could hear the feathering of the throttle there. So Pete Plasto letting David Wrench back through. Very gentlemanly of him there, but here comes Ryan Martin. All stops have been removed. All here's the race-winning Ryan Martin coming back out to close that gap down to Chris Pauly. He's played with his food enough. It is now time for him to devour.
0.6 of a second, Chris. It's come down 0.3 on this lap. I was going to say the speed difference between them, I think, is around about 3 or 4 tenths a lap. And unfortunately, Pauly's felt the pressure there, because now he's made a mistake out of the last corner. It's 4 tenths, Chris. It's 3.5 tenths. Martin's coming, and I don't know what Pauly's going to have to be able to do about it. He's going to have to go defensive here, but there's still 2 laps to go potentially. Or actually, no, this will be the last lap potentially then for Chris Pauly. So Martin needed to make the time up on that lap, and he's done exactly that. It was a 55.3 from Pauly, a 54.4 from Martin, who now looks to the inside as we exit the Montreal hairpin. They're going to be side by side now. Martin's got a good exit as well, but Pauly should have the line now heading into Rich's. Problem being, he's going to be compromised on the exit. Martin goes for the up and under, and he's got the exit here, so Martin's going to sweep to the inside. Pauly's going to try and defend it, but there's an overlap, and Ryan Martin is going to have the inside line into Agostini. Late on the brakes, gets the move done. Can he get out the corner, or will Pauly now try a cut back as they head back towards Hamilton? It looks like Martin may have this one done now, Chris.
Yeah, I'd say so. That was a pretty decisive move at the perfect time. But here comes Adam Barron. This was the group he wanted to get into the lead of. That puts him up into 6th position. He will not have time to close in that 9-second gap to the group that we've been watching very, very intensely. That group with Martin, Pauly, Wrench, Plasto, and Stevens. So David Wrench is leading this little trio now. Pete Plasto right on his tail. Can the Aston Martin do anything against David Wrench to wrestle that last podium spot? But Pauly's not done yet on the tail of Ryan Martin. They're coming through. Brundle and Nelson. Again, I forget my corner names. It's all so exciting. But Ryan Martin's going to have to defend. He's going to have to find that extra gear from somewhere through Gorham. It looks like Wrench and Plasto nearly side by side, coming through the long right-hander as well. Absolutely fantastic stuff. Who's going to come out here? I think Ryan Martin's going to have enough. Oh, you can see Plasto trying the different line, but has that put him off heading down towards the line? It's the flash of the lights from both of the Mercedes, even a celebratory wiggle. So it is Ryan Martin from Chris Pauly from David Wrench, your top 3.
Excellent stuff. It was the 3 that I thought might rise to the top in that race, and in reverse order of how they started. But that's what reverse racing is all about. We saw the cream rise to the top, the fastest drivers come through, but tell you what, David Wrench certainly had a good go at that one, didn't he? He defended well from the front, obviously lost out to Pauly relatively early on, but still did a good job to finish on the podium. Pauly just couldn't quite hang on long enough for Martin. I did say, you know, he's 1.6 seconds ahead and he lost 6 tenths. At that point, I thought, you know what, that could have been it for Pauly. He could have been away. And that 6 tenths proved to be crucial, because that's what Ryan Martin needed to close that gap back down and take the win in the end. Came down to the last lap. Great move, though, it has to be said, from Ryan Martin. Meanwhile, we've got some of the rear runners with a lot of damage. Adrian Warmington, barely a Mercedes left as he crosses the line in 15th. Darren Barris finishing 14th, with Wardle, Chambers, Weston and Forrest taking you up to P10. So, yeah, I mean, there were so many great battles in that race, wasn't there? Lots of overtakes, lots of great defending, great moves, but Snetterton 300 delivering for the spectators.
Oh, that was spectacular. Really, really enjoyed that. But Ryan Martin, again, a class of 1. Nothing was preventing him. Chris Pauly gave it his best, hung on as best he could, but there was no denying that the silverware is heading north of the border. Absolutely superb effort, but can't take it away from David Rent either. Thought he was going to be strong in that reverse grid position he was in, and did manage to get to the front. Took him a little while to do. Did build a little bit of a lead, but it was just not enough to keep the charging Scotsman behind. So then, before any stewards intervention, Ryan Martin takes the win. Chris Pauly second, David Wrench third, Pete Plasto fourth, Tom Stevens fifth, Adam Barron sixth, John Finch seventh, James King eighth, Dan Cross nine, and Matthew Forrest rounding out the top 10. Ben Weston 11th, Matt Chambers 12th, Steve Wardle 13th, Darren Barris 14th, Adrian Warmington in the somewhat reshaping Mercedes, looked a bit like a Mustang actually, in 15th position, Sean Watson in 16th, and we lost in the course of the race, Jack Jewski. Wow, absolutely superb stuff. Now, before we have a chat with our podium three, it is time for us to choose what our random race is going to be. So next week, it is one of these tracks. Now, before we spin it, John, if you were to pick one, where would you go?
Now, in terms of, as a spectator, I would love to see a race around either Charlotte Roval, because I think we saw some amazing racing at Daytona Oval last season, or Okayama. I think it's a great circuit, not utilised enough in my opinion, and it's brilliant. I love driving Okayama, I love Lime Rock as well. I see lots of races at Laguna Seca, it's always good, but I've seen it a lot. VIR as well, a bit of a tricky one, but it also provides good racing. To be honest, Chris, I don't care. It's going to be a great race regardless, but for me, it would be Charlotte Roval or Okayama is what I'd like to see.
Yeah, I went Laguna Seca and VIR were the ones I was going to go for. Production, spin the wheel. Let us see where we are going to go. Where is it going to be? I'm sure all the drivers have their wants of where it would prefer. Who's going to win out on this one? Is it going to be Lime Rock? That's close.
Happy with
I
that.
am denied. I have been denied. I was so close. It's taunting me there. But Lime Rock is the place we are going to next week for round number 5 of this amazing championship. So whilst that gets communicated down to our drivers, let us have a chat with our podium 3. Let us start with our 3rd place finisher, which is David Ramsey.
Let me back.
With us.
Hello.
That's something our commentators like to do, is interrupt a conversation going on in the waiting room.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow, David. Now, we did tip you to do pretty well with this reverse grid race, and you managed to work your way to the front. Couldn't quite break away, though, from the chasing pack. Talk us through it from your side.
It was Operation Defend from minute one. As soon as I saw Chris, Pete, and Ryan coming through, I knew it was a matter of if, or when, not if, I should say. But no, I'm happy with P3. Big props to Pete after a little incident for relinquishing the position back, so I can't be too mad. But no, Snetterton is a track I've never driven, so it was a learning curve to say the least.
Yeah, absolutely. So how did you find the Norfolk Classic then in the end?
Yeah, I'm glad it's over.
So you're in the Pete Plasto camp then for Snetterton.
Yes. It's a love-hate relationship with this track.
Oh, fair enough. You've had quite a mixed few results. Welcome to the series first of all.
Oh, thank you.
It's great to see some new names really making the establishment really work for it. Am I right in saying you were in an endurance race recently?
Yes, I took part in on a set of quarter, the Williams Gaming Club Watkins Glen race, and then recently did a short form multi-class race at Mount Panorama, which went about as well as expected. But
more like Pandora's box than Mount Panorama. Then, if you're like something like mine, But awesome stuff. So it's always good to kind of get some, like I say, some new names in the mixture. Are you going to be with us for a full season, or does work take you away?
I'm hoping to finish the full season, fingers crossed, with work permitting, obviously. But no, at the moment, every race seems to be free on the calendar, so hopefully continue this form.
We very much look forward to it indeed. Any questions, John?
I mean, I just want to say, like, I really noticed, David, in the first round. Obviously, you had a great result at Thruxton, but your I rating was a lot lower than everyone else. I seem to get the impression that you're pretty new to the service. First of all, is that true? Are you quite new to iRacing? And if so, do you have experience in other sim racing titles?
So I started iRacing in 2022, realised that I was terrible, and put it in a box on a back burner, moved on to Formula One. So I race inter-services for Formula One, and sort of fell back in love with GT3 and the likes on a set of course competizione. And then Kingy invited me to this and thought, what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah, I mean, you've been doing a great job. The reason it stood out to me, obviously, like, you know, the drivers in this field are very strong, right? We've got a good caliber of drivers, high I ratings and stuff. So your I rating wasn't low, but it was relative to everyone else's. And I just thought you were punching so far above your weight in terms of pace. So clearly you've got the potential on iRacing. So it's good to see you giving it another go now. And you've clearly come a long way as a driver in the last few years as well. So yeah, I just wanted to say I'd spotted that, and you've been doing a great job punching above your weight. And it's good to see that I rating growing as well as the season's gone on. So do you think, you know, we could see more podium finishes later in the year?
A dream is yes. Reality, if reverse grid continues to be kind to me, hopefully. But I think I've got a long way to go before I start regularly challenging the usual suspect to the podium. But we'll keep pushing and hope for the best.
Amazing stuff. We very much, what we've seen so far this season, I'm sure this will not be the last time we speak to you.
Hopefully.
Great podium and best of luck for the rest of the season. Thank you very much, David Wrench.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Right, our second place finisher, Chris Pawley. Let us grab him into the box. Chris, are you with us?
Good evening, gents. How's it going?
Very, very well, sir. Firstly, thank you for updating us on the situation and why you did take part in qualifying. Appreciate that. But, I mean, we kind of checked in on you several times throughout the course of the first race. And what incredible progress. But, wow, yeah, that looked like an all-out brawl for the podium in race 2.
Yeah, that was a great race, especially with the way that I started this evening. So I wasn't feeling the best, to be honest, about starting 16th, but to get a 5th and then to be leading that for the majority of it, obviously a fantastic move by Ryan there to snatch it at the end. But yeah, pretty pleased with that. It helps in the championship massively.
Absolutely so. It very much keeps you in the fight. Now, have you seen where the randomized track is going?
I've not, but unfortunately, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to make next week, so I might be relying on drop scores anyway.
Lime Rock is where we're going for.
Oh, good.
Next week. Is that a track that works for you?
Yeah, that is probably one of my favourite tracks on iRacing. I mean, it's one of the ones that you use a lot because it's obviously one of the free ones you start with. So, yeah, it is one of my favourites. So I'd be keen to try my best to make that race.
Yeah, shame you'd be missing it if that's the case, because I love Lime Rock as well. It's such a fun track to race around, especially I think in GT4 cars with a slipstream. It's gonna be epic.
Yeah, it flows really nicely as well. So and these cars handle great. So it's I think we'd get some good racing there.
So with reference to the championship, then are you eyeing a particular spot, or was it just a case of just keeping consistent results? Are you thinking?
Well, before I found out I had a penalty this evening, I was eyeing the top spot, but unfortunately, obviously the qualifiers put me back. So I think really Ryan, you know, he had such pace this evening, and he's got so much pace throughout that really all I can rely on doing is keep getting consistent scores. And at the minute, that seems to be putting me in second, which is, you know, on the balance of things, probably where, you know, I think I deserve to be. But yeah, if Ryan has any hiccups later in the season, you never know, might have a chance to push him a bit. So, but realistically, I think it's got to be aiming for the best of the rest at the minute.
You never know, Chris. You never know. It could still swing your way. Any questions, John?
Yeah, first of all, just well done again on another great podium result. And as you say, you're still in there, keeping Ryan honest, and you're forcing him to get it right. But unfortunately for you, that's exactly what he did in that second race. I mean, at one point, Chris, I thought you had it. You were 1.6 seconds ahead of David before Ryan got past him, and then all of a sudden you dropped about 0.6 of a second in the middle of the lap. Was there a particular mistake in there at some point that we maybe missed on camera?
Yeah, I was just chatting to Ryan about this. I think I was pushing too hard at the start because I was super keen to get ahead of David, who put up a good fight. And I wanted to build a gap, but I think, I don't know whether I just, overheated the tyres, did too much work in them. I didn't feel like I had the pace later on. And then going under the bridge, the left-hander into the right-hander before Bommel, I just got it wrong on one lap and lost 0.6. And then from then on, I was doing the maths. I thought Ryan's 1.4 behind and he's about 0.8 a lap quicker, and there's 2 laps left, and I thought this is not working well in my favour here.
When maths comes into it as a race leader, it's never a good sign.
Yeah, yeah. I probably should have been focusing ahead rather than looking behind, but he's just got so much pace once he gets let loose. So, but to be fair to him, he put a great move on as well. It was good racing as well, which is what this is all about.
So it's Lime Rock for the randomised track for next week. Is that a track that works well for you?
Yeah, I think I hopefully I can make it next week, but like I said, one of my favourite, one that flows really well. So we'll see how it goes.
Great stuff. So we look forward to yet more podiums and yet more wins coming your way. Great stuff. And tripping over my words entirely. Brain is already shut off, you see. I'm sure we will speak to you numerous times throughout the season. Thank you very much, Chris Pauly.
Thanks, guys.
Cheers, Chris.
Even forgetting I've already asked him that question. That's
it's 2 races at Lime Rock, Chris. It's fine. We can ask him about each race.
Yeah, well, yeah, true enough. Right, we know what happens next. Let's have another chat with our double race victor, Ryan Martin. Ryan, are you with us?
Yes, I am. Good evening again for the second time.
Oh, I mean, you looked like you were kind of, just biding your time a bit in the early part. You were kind of, doing exactly what you said you do. And as you did in race 1, you stopped playing with your food and decided to get on with it.
Oh, it was a good race. First lap, I actually thought that I'd murdered someone at turn 2, but I've looked back at the replay. It was nothing to do with me. I didn't touch anybody, so we're all good. So panic is over for penalties. And from then on, I was just trying to catch as many cars as I could. I was making sure priority was keeping it clean, putting people in positions where they thought, right, I'll just let them go. And then when I got to the top 3, it was more I'll just try and put the pressure on, stress them out a little bit. And it worked for when I got past David. And it didn't quite work with Chris, but I think he was maybe a little bit too aggressive into turn 3, and I seen him go wide, and I realised that was my opportunity. So got up alongside him, and I did explain to him in the waiting room that even if he'd come right across the track, I was willing to put half the car on the grass to get past. So it was good fun. It was a hard battle, but I think in terms of pace, we all ended up where we should have in that race.
So John was right then. He said that both versions of Ryan would come out. So he was right there. John called it. So it's Lime Rock that we're heading to for our random track. How does that work for you?
So I have never driven that track. So there'll be other people, like Chris was just saying, he's driven it quite a lot. Unfortunately, he's not going to be there possibly, but I imagine there'll be plenty of other guys that have driven that track. And I had never even heard of it. So when somebody put it in the chat, Lime Rock Park, I literally put a message saying, Lime Rock Park, where? I've never driven it. It's never been on my radar before. So I reckon in the next few days, I'm going to have to jump on and do some laps. But hopefully it looks like a pretty quick track. There's plenty of straights. So with these cars and the slipstream that they have, I don't think many people will just be driving clear next week.
Excellent. Forward to that. Any questions, John?
First of all, just well done on another victory there, Ryan, and it's certainly exciting for us to watch. talk us through the move on Chris, because obviously, you know, we at one point I thought it was over. I thought the gap was too big, but then Chris made a slight mistake. You obviously got past Wrench and then managed to close that gap down with the penultimate lap. So talk us through the move, because it just looked like you planned over a number of corners.
Yeah, so to be fair, it was more an opportunistic move. I didn't expect Chris to go wide to the right-hand side. I thought he was just going to hold the inside and then push me out, or at least make me come off the throttle and tuck in behind him. But he fully committed, committed a little bit too much. He went across to the outside, and then I took the opportunity. That was not the plan at all. It was the fact that I seen him fly right across the track, and I got on the brakes, got the car rotated, and then just got on the power as quick as I could. I know for a fact that Chris could have moved over and defended that more, but I think the fact that it's myself and Chris at the top of the championship, it was probably better to avoid silly games, because if you play silly games, you get silly prizes. So yeah, it was a great move. I enjoyed it. He said that he couldn't have done much about it because he could tell that I had overspeed, but considering we were at the front, it was the last lap. There was no need to do anything silly. And as long as we both got to the end of the race, we were scoring good points.
You're going to enjoy Lime Rock Park, let me tell you that.
I hope so. As I say, never driven it, but we'll give it a go, and I'll do my best.
Can't wait for that. A brilliant win, class of one once again. And look forward to seeing you in the box in the future. Thank you very much, Ryan Martin.
Thank you, guys. Have a good evening, and I'll see you next week.
That you shall, and that is going to bring an end to tonight's festivities. Thank you very much to those that have been with us, either live or post-event. It was a pleasure to have your company. Thank you very much, John Monroe, for joining me in the box. A great pleasure, as always, to join you, good sir, and what a night's racing we've had.
It was superb. Thank you very much, Chris. Big thanks, of course, again to Tom behind the scenes as well. And yeah, I mean, delighted that we're going to Lime Rock Park next week. Delighted that we saw some good racing tonight, and I just think that's going to continue throughout the season. It's really getting down to the crux of it now. We're almost at the midway point here in the AFVRC for 2025, and things are certainly hotting up at the top. There's one man still looking strong, but Chris Pauly's right there in championship points, and anything can happen. So bring on Lime Rock.
Absolutely so. So, as mentioned, it's Lime Rock Park for our randomly chosen race for next week, round 5 of this amazing series. Hope you join us for the midway part of the season. Until next time, thank you very much, and good night.